이미 많이 이겨왔기 때문에 이번에 당연히 이겨야 되는 거고.
We'll try to make it interesting for them. I wanna make them sweat for it.
I was born from the bottom but raised to the top. I was born from the bottom but raised to the top. I was born from the bottom but raised to the top. I'ma keep on climbing, I ain't gonna stop.
They will sweep the Flash-Wolves. They will defend their MSI championship.
They were looking to prove to the world that G2 are redeemed.
저희가 사실 지기를 원하는 사람들도 되게 많은 것 같아요. 물론 질 가능성은 좀 염두를 해야겠지만 저는 질 거라고 생각하지 않기 때문에 문제 없을 거라고 생각합니다.
We are the best team in Europe. We can make them struggle.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our final match of the 2017 Mid-Season Invitational. 13 teams enter the tournament for a month of action, and it all comes down to today's series here in the Jeunesse Arena in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Hello, everyone. I am James Dash Patterson, and with me for this final fight are Isaac Gazelle, Cummings Bentley, Chris Papa Smithy Smith, and Joshua Jat Leesman. Gentlemen, we've made it to the end of the road. Only one more best of 5 to go before we crown our MSI champions. How are you feeling in this venue, which is electric?
Pumped up. The fans have been so loud for so long, but not as loud as they've been today.
Let's be clear. This has been going on for hours leading up to the opening of this show. Had to turn the sound up in my own headset just so I could make sure I hear you guys. How about you two? How are you two feeling?
I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, the fans are so excited, and so am I.
Everyone's hyped about this. I'm hyped. The crowd's hyped. I just want to get it started.
Well, we're going to have to wait just a little bit to get it started before we get the games underway. Gentlemen, before we get down to business, it's time to meet the contenders for the 2017 Mid-Season Invitational Championship.
Senhoras e senhores, deem boas-vindas aos finalistas do Mid-Season Invitational 2017. Representando a LCS Europa, G2 eSports.
G2 eSports have killed Team Solo Mid. They've routed them. They've aced them.
They're going to get more.
She is down. Triple kills are perks at G2. G2 eSports take down WE, and G2 are redeemed.
O técnico Young Buck. O reserva Upset. Jogando na rota superior, Expect. Na selva, Trick. Jogando na rota do meio, Perks. O carregador, Sven. E o suporte, Miffy. G2 eSports. Do outro lado, defendendo o título do MSI e atuais campeões do mundo, SK Telecom T1.
SKT dominate G2 to lock in first.
Virat follows it through for his 14th kill.
They will sweep the Flash-Wolves, and they will do what they have always done, achieve victory.
O treinador, Coma. O substituto na selva, Blank. Jogando no topo, Rune. Na selva, Peanut. Na rota do meio, Faker. Na rota inferior, o carregador, Bang. E o suporte, Wolf. Vamos dar novamente as boas-vindas aos finalistas do MSI 2017, G2 eSports e SK Telecom T1.
Cheers for both squads there, but no surprise that the SK Telecom roster there gets just an overwhelming decibel level in terms of the cheers that are coming after each of their names.
I mean, I'm getting chills. I get these fans super hyped to see them in the LCK finals. The world fans don't get to see them that often. The Brazilian fans are making themselves heard around the world.
That's absolutely right. Let's go ahead and get a refresher on how our finalists arrived here in the finals today. SK Telecom topped the group stage and beat Flash Wolves 3-0 after entering the semifinals as the #1 seed, whereas the G2 eSports Club clinched a bracket spot on the final day of the group stage and upset Team WE yesterday in a 3-1.
And it was a very exciting match. I mean, not many people thought G2 would make it this far, and they've done very well to make it.
And more importantly, this is the first EU versus Korea final, or rather EU representation in a Riot final since Season 1. So again, in terms of that redemption story, throw that out the window. These guys have surpassed that. They're looking for greatness. We still want to look at your favorite moments, though, from MSI. So hit us up at LOL Esports and tell us what's going on in your highlight reel. Be sure to include the hashtag MSI 2017 so we can check back in later today. For 2 years, though, SKT has been the best in the world, and they are here to defend their MSI title. But let's talk about what's different with this squad this time around.
And it's been an organizational story, Dash and guys here, just because, remember, we almost forget that it's actually been 10 players, actually, that have made up that 2 years of domination. You think all the way back to 2015 Worlds, names like Marin and EasyHoon, of course, were in the equation then. Last year, we saw people join and end. Blank joined the team. Bengi, of course, no longer with the squad. Also, Duke has to be talked about. Blank as a substitute today, and the 5UC. This is a fearsome roster.
Yeah, and speaking of the 5UC today and their new additions, Pooney, he dominated the EU LCS, he dominated the NA LCS. Now he is dominating in the LCK, making a case for himself as one of the best in the world. And Peanut, this guy was already a monster, showing up huge at Worlds, and now for SKT, I believe he's the undisputed best jungler in the world.
And I think it's easy to forget how impressive their sustained dominance has actually been. It wasn't until 2016 that a world champion actually made it even into Worlds next year, yet we're now talking about SKT winning every tournament for 2 years straight. It is absolutely unprecedented how they continue to rewrite history and continue to extend their legacy.
Yeah, 3-time world champions, 2-time defending champions there, and the defending champions here of the MSI title. So again, that resume is ultra impressive, rather, and they're just looking to add more accolades to it. Now, G2 has dominated Europe and finally found success and redemption on the international stage. So now, what's left, right? It's reaching for greatness.
Yeah, they finally delivered after a year of international disappointments, and you could tell how excited the entire G2 roster was. They just kind of seemed to relax a little bit afterwards. They were so happy about it, and now I wonder what their next level is going to be, because it doesn't end when you make the finals. You still now have to play SKT.
And this was definitely a prediction I was happy to get wrong. I looked at the lineups and I said, okay, Trick is the big weakness here. How is he going to stack up to Condi, who had been the really big star for WE? And they rewrote that story. Trick came back man of the match. Man of the tournament, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself there, but such a big step up, and he was what facilitated G2 to end their struggles in the early game, really step up, and he's got that fearsome opposition today, but if he can do it again, I'm not willing to say G2 will win, but G2 will make one hell of an impression.
And I mean, the thing is, yes, you're going up against the undisputed best team in the world, but you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity to prove yourself as the best team in the world. If you take down SKT, you achieve greatness.
Yeah, you see so many teams lock up when they play against SKT. G2 has kind of been through the locking up phase. It feels like they've kind of conquered that demon of being able to play on a big stage. But listening to that crowd at the start, I have never heard a crowd this packed, this loud during an introduction, and it's a new stage.
I mean, it's a year's worth of weight and pressure off your shoulders. You've done what you needed to do to kind of get back to that status, right? Where now everything beyond this point is something that you're reaching for, and now you can do it with kind of unbridled aggression. Now, we need to talk about what G2 will have to do, though, in order to challenge SKT. Because it's one thing to say, all right, they've lived up to, you know, their goals for this tournament, but you still have this best-of-5 to play. And SKT is no small opponent. So what are we looking for out of this G2 squad to propel them forward?
Yeah, so the things that they've done the best is they've identified their win conditions, played towards that, and I feel like had very strong drafts. I feel like Young Buck obliterated Team WE in the draft phase in almost every game yesterday, and they need to do something similar against SKT, who have at times shown generic drafts. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what they need to be able to do.
I mean, they showed the biggest adaptation, I have to say, was one trick, short Trick's performance. But as you say, Young Buck's drafts in the second week, I think, were really impressive. You just look at their early mid-game focus. They actually dropped 11 minutes off taking the mid lane turret. You might ask, what does that mean? Well, it feels like the early to mid-game, the mid-game kind of begins when you take the mid lane turret, when you open up the map, and they were able to do that so much earlier, and that was really credit to Young Buck.
And at the end of the day, you know, you can get a good draft, you can have a good individual performance, but you're going to have the best series that any of these players have ever played all at the same time to be able to take down SKT.
Absolutely, but if we look at those individuals and kind of the matchups that they have across the board, I think with very few losses, sustained losses for SKT to look at, we have to look at the two that came in group stage. Faker kind of being the vulnerability of the team there, and if we look at Perks on the flip side of it, this guy has had a tremendous tournament.
And it's so difficult to go up against Faker because not only are you going up against the best mechanical player in the world, his reputation also impacts the matchup. You need to be fearless and overconfident. Perks has actually been both of those things in the past, and that's the mindset he needs to take into Faker today.
You know, and for Faker, people were questioning him coming into the semifinals. You know, he hadn't been having the best tournament, and then he put Maple in the dumpster. I mean, he absolutely destroyed that matchup, and that is the most recent games that he has played. Perks will be looking at that, and it's got to be a bit intimidating.
And that's the thing, right? You got to be ready to go up against a faker like that, knowing that, hey, maybe he'll have an off day, but you got to be ready to play him at his best. Look at another lane. I want to talk about the bot lane as a whole here. We've always talked about Bang and Sven here coming into the tournament as these guys are stellar ADCs, top tier. Their supports, though, right alongside them. Wolf having a fantastic year, and Mithy, particularly in that best-of-5 series, really put up some fantastic individual play.
And the other fun thing is that this narrative, of course, of SKT's dominance began in many ways at 2015 Worlds. These two bot lanes faced each other. It was SKT versus Origin way back then, and that was, of course, the bot lane matchup. A lot has happened since then, but the respect and also the skill of both these bot lanes are still equally respected.
All right, well, the players are almost ready, so before we get into it, I need you guys to tell me, who do you think will be the 2017 Midseason Invitational Champions? Azale, starting with you.
Well, before I answer, I have to ask you a question. Do you believe in miracles?
You know what, Azale? I absolutely...
No, well, I don't. It's going to be 3-0 SKT.
All right, that was simple enough. You shut me down. No miracles happening today, at least over on that side of the table. Papa Smithy, what do you got for me?
I mean, I loved what I saw yesterday from G2, but I think we are in an unprecedented time for us. Well, we know this already. I know what you're going to say, but we're in the middle of a dominance that we may never see again in League of Legends. So I can't go against SKT, but even as a Korean analyst, I kind of now wonder, what if?
Absolutely hard-pressed to find a reason that SKT wouldn't win this game. Jack, can you do it for me? Or
yeah, I'm not going to belabor this too much. I've seen so many SKT best-of-5s go their way. The last time they lost was at MSI, so we know it definitely can happen. And boy, I'd actually like to see it with the way G2 has lived up to every single challenge they've faced, but you can't go against the percentages in this case, and I think SKT will take it.
All right, every analyst bone in your body up here is telling you SKT. It's time to pass it over to the casters to kick off the finals. As we go, Mithy tells us that while you can beat SKT, there's no room for error.
Well, if we do get an early game lead, try to not make decisions that give them a chance to fight back. Just take it slow, play for a slow snowball, and build up on your lead slowly but steadily. I think that's the first thing. Don't go for trades. Don't just play a very slow and steady game. I think that's the main thing. Try to not give them fights because they're pretty good at the they're just good players, right? So if you try to fight them, make sure you get the right fight. Don't just fight them for no reason. Fight them with a purpose. That's probably the main way to beat SKT. Play slow and steady and fight with a purpose. Don't give them the fights they want. And I mean, it sounds really easy, but it's not.
It might sound easy, but it's definitely